While many people have taste in wine that aligns closely with that of Mr. Suckling, some other people think that his scores can be too high. But regardless of what you think about Mr. Suckling's grading scale, he's been in the business for many years, and I've found that his high-level observations are extremely insightful. Consequently, I just studied Mr. Suckling's Top 100 list of wines of the world for 2025, which was just released on Halloween. I believe that there's a number of useful takeaways and insights from that list, so in this video, I'm going to reveal 11 observations from Mr. Suckling's Top 100 wines of 2025. And be sure to stick around until the end, because at the end I'm going to discuss 4 of my favorite wines from this list, each of which I've featured on this channel in the past few months. While Mr. Suckling does review many of the wines on this list, he's not alone. And in fact, he has a team of 12 tasters that do an excellent job, and last year they combined to review an impressive 45,000 wines. My first observation relates to the price criteria used for this year's list. While last year's list was very much a list for high rollers, with lots of expensive wines, and the maximum price being set at $500 per bottle for being included in the list, this year Mr. Suckling was much more sensitive to the cost of the wines. In fact, he did not include any wines in his top 10 unless they were priced below $100. Likewise, he did not include any wines in the top 100 list unless the price was below $200 per bottle. Impressively, half of the wines included in the top 100 sell for less than $100 per bottle, and 10 of them sell for less than $50 per bottle. There's even 2 of them, both of which made the top 10, that sell for as little as $25. Because of these price caps, many of the big names that you'd oftentimes see on this list from places like Bordeaux, Burgundy, Champagne, Napa, Barolo, and Tuscany did not make this year's list. Another takeaway based on my review of Mr. Suckling's Top 100 list is that he was also very concerned about production volumes because he wanted to make sure that people would be able to track down and enjoy the wines that were featured on his list. For that reason, he did not include any wines in his top 10 list unless they produced at least 12,000 bottles of the wine. Likewise, no wine was included in his top 100 unless there were at least 5,000 bottles of that wine produced. For that reason, you should be able to track down the vast majority of these wines if you do a little bit of searching. With respect to the entire list, the minimum score for eligibility to be included was 98 points. Well, last year, France struggled a bit with only 18 wines out of the top 100. It rebounded in a big way in 2025, and this year it has around 30 wines featured out of the top 100 wines on Mr. Suckling's list. While there's wines from many different regions in France included in Mr. Suckling's top 100, the strength of France was driven in large part by Bordeaux and the excellent 2022 vintage. In fact, 16 out of the 30 wines in Mr. Suckling's list come from Bordeaux. And it's not just red wines that made the cut. There's also at least 1 white wine included, as well as 2 Sauternes that made the top 100. Mr. Suckling absolutely raved about Bordeaux. In fact, he compared the 2022 vintage to legendary Bordeaux vintages like 1928, 1947, 1959, and 1982. For those who are worried about having to cellar your Bordeaux and want more immediate gratification, it's worth noting that Mr. Suckling said that these wines are also quite approachable in their youth. In fact, the wine of the year was the 2022 Chateauneuf-du-Pape from Margaux. This is a wine that sells for around $70 per bottle, and Mr. Suckling noted that the high percentage of Merlot made this wine quite approachable even in its youth. So much so that when revisiting this wine with his team a few days before finalizing his top 100 list, they enjoyed a bottle of the 2022 Chateauneuf-du-Pape, and they were shocked that it was completely finished within 20 minutes. So definitely a very delicious and enjoyable wine, even now. The other thing I'll note about Bordeaux is that for those of you who don't enjoy Sauternes, you'll definitely want to give it a try. This is the second year in a row that both Soudrireau and Laffrey-Perriget made Mr. Suckling's top 100 list, and both of these wines offer extremely high quality at very, very reasonable prices. While Italy dominated James Suckling's top 100 list in 2024, coming in first in terms of countries represented with more than 1/4 of the list. This year, it definitely pulled back a little bit, and there's less than 20% of the wines from Italy on this year's Top 100 list. The one observation that stands out from Mr. Suckling's Top 100 list this year, however, is his excitement about Etna, which is a wine region located in Sicily, Italy. Etna is a region that's producing lots of outstanding high-quality wines, both red and white, and many of them sell for around $50 per bottle or so. This year, Mr. Suckling's #1 wine for all of Italy came from Etna, but this wine only came in number 23 on his Top 100 list due to the production limitations, as they don't make at least 12,000 bottles of that wine. For those of you who are interested in more information about the white wine from Etna, that wine came in at number 44 on Mr. Suckling's list. For fans of the United States stayed about the same as last year in terms of its representation, with 14 wines out of the Top 100. Interestingly, Mr. Suckling included wines from places like Washington, Oregon, and even New York in his Top 100 list. The producers in Washington and Oregon included favorites of this channel, K. Vintners and Sauternes. Of course, the majority of the United States wines on this year's Top 100 came from California, but there were actually more wines from Sonoma than from Napa Valley this year. Sonoma had very strong vintages in 2022 and 2023, and there's a number of top Chardonnay and Pinot Noir from Sonoma included on this list. While Cabernet is king in Napa Valley, that's not the case with respect to this year's Top 100 list. In fact, the few wines that were included from Napa Valley on this year's Top 100 list are white wines. Specifically, these are Chardonnays from the cooler Carneros AVA. I think what's going on here is that red wines struggled a little bit in Napa Valley in 2022 due to the heat spikes during harvest. In contrast, 2023 is going to be an exceptional vintage in Napa Valley. At least 2 of the white wines that are included from Carneros in this year's Top 100 are from the much stronger 2023 vintage. So I would expect Napa Valley to rebound next year with the 2023 red wines being released, although I will note that the price cap undoubtedly had a negative impact on some of Napa Valley's red wines and their eligibility for this list as well. Many viewers in this channel are interested in underrated wines, and this year's Top 100 list from Mr. Suckling definitely had a heavy emphasis on wines that were underrated. I've already discussed Etna earlier in this video, but Mr. Suckling was also extremely impressed with Beaujolais, and Beaujolais is definitely well represented in his Top 100 list this year. In fact, the number 3 wine in his list sells for only $25 and is a very impressive Beaujolais. Mr. Suckling noted that there's many compelling values in Beaujolais right now, and these are impressive wines that you can enjoy immediately. The Anything But Chardonnay crowd will be disappointed to learn that Mr. Suckling is a huge fan of Chardonnay. In fact, 13 Chardonnays were included in his Top 100 list this year. Ironically, Burgundy was not the driving force for the success of Chardonnay on this year's Top 100. Instead, Mr. Suckling included a diverse list of Chardonnays from around the world, including from places like Germany, Australia, Chile, Argentina, Napa, Sonoma, and Santa Cruz Mountains. Mr. Suckling made it a point to note that one of the catalysts for his inclusion of a large number of Chardonnays on this year's list was a bit of a change in winemaking style, with many producers now emphasizing elegance and more restrained, lower alcohol by volume percentages, and also the use of much less new oak in the maturation process. Unbeatable quality, indisputably aristocratic, and ludicrously unfashionable. Those are the words that Jancis Robinson used to famously describe Riesling. But for those of us who are big Riesling fans, you'll be pleased to note that Riesling had a strong showing in Mr. Suckling's Top 100 this year, and it makes up 8 out of the top 100 wines. These outstanding Rieslings come from some of my favorite Riesling-producing regions, including Wachau, Austria, Alsace, France, 2 from Germany, 1 from Clare Valley in Australia, and there's even one from New York included on this year's list. Australia and New Zealand rebounded a little bit this year, and they have 6 or 7 wines included in the top 100 for 2025. Of particular note is the fact that the number 4 wine comes from Central Otago in New Zealand. This impressive wine sells for only $25 per bottle, and Mr. Suckling decried the fact that this outstanding wine does not even sell regularly in the United States because this producer does not even have a U.S. importer yet. I suspect that's going to change in the very near future, so hopefully we'll all be able to taste this wine before long. This year, Germany was a bit of a loser, but I think part of that was due to the fact that last year it had an extremely strong representation on the list due to the strength of the 2023 vintage in Germany. So maybe this is just a little bit of a reversion to the mean, with Germany coming in with about 4 or 5 wines on the top 100. In addition to the 2 Rieslings mentioned earlier, I thought it was very interesting, however, that one of the wines from Germany that's on the list is a Blaufränkisch that came in at number 20. While there's a number of high-quality wines being produced in South Africa, unfortunately, those wines are often overlooked on these top 100 lists. So I was pleased to see that not only did Mr. Suckling include a South African wine at number 79 on his list, but the wine that he featured is one from one of my very favorite South African producers, namely Sadie Family. Sadie Family Swartland Columella is an extremely high-quality red wine that's a blend that's dominant in Syrah. While it is a very high-quality wine, in the United States, it typically sells for more than $150 and up. So you'll definitely want to shop around to find the best price if you want to give this one a try. Viewers of this channel oftentimes get an early jump on some of the wines that are featured on Mr. Suckling's top 100 list. This is so because throughout the year, many of the wines that I feature on this channel eventually find their way onto Mr. Suckling's top 100 list. This year, for example, 4 of the wines included in Mr. Suckling's list were featured on this channel in the past few months alone. Not surprisingly, these are some of my favorite wines on Mr. Suckling's top 100, and I'll discuss each of them in turn. Located in Gaioli in Chianti, Castello d'Ama is situated on a scenic site with stunning views, extremely rocky soils, and high elevation. Specifically, it's located around 500 meters above sea level. These conditions help to ensure naturally low yields and make for some impressive concentrated expressions of Sangiovese. I had a chance to visit this winery back in September, and in addition to having some impressive artwork throughout the estate, they made some of the best wines that I tasted during my trip. My favorite was the Castello d'Ama San Lorenzo Chianti Classico Gran Selezione. The 2021 vintage is on store shelves now, and it's extremely highly acclaimed, and justifiably so. This is an extremely impressive wine with tremendous purity of fruit and flavors and aromas that include blackberry, black cherry, and violets. There's ample acidity and a long, complex finish. This is definitely a wine that would be better in a few years, so it's going to be best to try to keep your hands off it and try to check in on it maybe in 2027 or 2028. It's dominant in Sangiovese, but they do include a little bit of Merlot in the blend as well. All the Marques de Murrieta wines that I've discussed so far have been red wines, but they also make one of the truly elite white wines in the world, and it's called Capiania. Capiania is 100% Viura, and this Viura comes from extremely old vines, some of which were planted more than 100 years ago. The Capiania vineyard is around 15 hectares, and it's planted at the highest elevation on the Igai estate, around 485 meters above sea level. One quick side note, viewers of this channel and fans of Marques de Murrieta are undoubtedly aware that in extremely special vintages, Marques de Murrieta produces a Castillo Igai Gran Reserva Blanco. When that happens, this is the fruit that goes into that wine. The most recent vintage was 1986. Currently, they're considering whether or not to release a 1998 vintage of the Castillo Igai Blanco Gran Reserva Especial. But at least as of the time I visited the winery about a week ago, no decision has been made yet as to whether they will produce that wine, and if so, when it will be released. For those of you who have tried the Castillo Ygay Gran Reserva Blanco, this Capellania wine is definitely a little bit different. This wine has been made since 2001 or so, and this wine is less oxidative. It's a little bit more fresh and fruit forward, and there's less oak influence. In fact, when I was at the winery, I saw the 2025 vintage of Capellania fermenting in concrete. Current release is the 2019 vintage, which was well received by critics. This is a mineral-driven wine that features flavors and aromas of apple, pear, citrus, blossom, and herbs, with ample acidity and a long lingering finish. There's a lot of Chateauneuf-du-Pape in the market these days that's overripe and big with high alcohol by volume percentages, but some of my favorite Chateauneuf-du-Pape wines are those that are a little bit more elegant, with some finesse, pronounced aromatic intensity, and are a little bit more comparable to Burgundy in style. An excellent example is the 2022 Domaine Chardonnay Chateauneuf-du-Pape. This wine is a blend that consists of 80% Grenache, 7% Syrah, 5% Mourvedre, and the rest is made up of other permitted varieties. This highly acclaimed wine was made from organically grown fruit. It features waves of mixed red and black fruit, violets, spice, and menthol. This wine has velvety tannins, abundant acidity, and is an absolute no-brainer if you enjoy Chateauneuf-du-Pape that's made in a more elegant style. When it comes to investing, you oftentimes hear the mantra, buy low and sell high. Well, that certainly applies to wine collecting as well. Of course, many people in both wine and investments do the exact opposite, paying up in chasing wines that are selling for extraordinarily high prices and ignoring some extremely high-quality wines that are practically being given away. In my view, there has never been a better time to purchase Sauternes. Sauternes is incredibly special. It ages effortlessly for decades, and so it makes an excellent birth year wine as well. And yet prices are ridiculously low. This category is extremely beleaguered, and many of the producers are shifting production to dry white wines just because they can't sell their Sauternes. Sauternes is a fantastic way to end a meal, whether you're enjoying it with dessert or with cheese. But it's also an extremely versatile companion with other courses as well, not just foie gras, but it also goes well with roast chicken and a number of other dishes too. The next top wine for $50 a bottle comes from a historic producer that's located extremely close to the legendary Chateau d'Yquem. This is a wine that flirts with perfection, yet can be purchased for less than $50 per bottle for a half bottle. And that's really all you need for a Sauternes. This is so because a little bit of Sauternes goes a long ways, and so even if we open a half bottle at the end of the night, we're capable of sharing that with 8 to 12 friends, and there's even a little bit left over. The 2022 Chateau Soudrireau Sauternes is 100% Semillon. You'll find that Semillon is the dominant grape in the majority of high-quality Sauternes. This wine is extraordinarily complex with flavors and aromas that include apricot, nectarine, citrus, almond, and mixed spice. While it is certainly a sweet wine, that sweetness is balanced beautifully by abundant acidity. There's an extraordinarily long finish. This is an absolutely phenomenal effort from Soudrireau, so if you'd like to give Sauternes a chance, this would be an excellent choice. I completely agree with Mr. Suckling that the 2022 vintage in Bordeaux is going to be legendary. Those wines are still available on store shelves now, but the 2023 vintage will be released soon. So if you have not yet stocked up on 2022 Bordeaux, you'll definitely want to do so sooner rather than later. If you'd like to learn more about the 2022 vintage in Bordeaux, or discover some of the wines that I recommend from that vintage, be sure to check out this video that's linked above.